Joining us now for our brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Welcome back to Lagos. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai.
Femi.
That's me.
I'm Arsenal.
That's me. Also. May we have reasons to celebrate at the end of this season, Ayo.
May we have reasons.
Arsenal is doing shaky.
Arsenal bottling company.
No problem. We're just making the title race interesting. That's what it is. It's entertainment for
I told them
everybody.
they don't want to be
I know what I mean.
Until Man City overtakes you
Never.
guys.
God, we
Never.
don't want it back to sender. We don't want that.
Bottling company.
Never.
Please,
this is
please.
our year.
Hope Arteta can hear.
Man City.
Hope Arteta can hear.
Man City.
This is your year. Hope Arteta can hear.
Please. Good morning to you, viewers. Please, viewers, you see what we're handling here. Good morning to you. Let me tell you what is happening around the world. Now, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has been released under investigation. That's after he was arrested on Thursday morning on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now, the former prince was photographed returning to Sandringham Estate after his release from Aylsham Police Station in Norfolk at around 7 p.m. Thursday evening. Thursday was also Andrew's 66th birthday. Now, his arrest follows an assessment of a complaint alleging the sharing of confidential material with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Police did search the Royal Lodge in Windsor, where he had recently lived, and also the Sandringham Estate in Norfolk. Searches are now over. Well, King Charles, who was not informed in advance of the move to arrest his younger brother, said that the law must now take its course, and it is believed that Prince William and Catherine also understood to support that same position. King Charles was at a fashion event yesterday, which is where he was pictured. He was heckled or asked questions about his brother. He declined to answer any of that. Now, Andrew himself has made no public comments since his arrest or his subsequent release. He also remains 8th in line to the throne and still continues to live in a royal residence. That is despite being stripped of his remaining royal titles by King Charles in November. And that was after losing most of his military and royal titles and duties back in 2022. Let's move on. President Donald Trump has announced a $10 billion US contribution to rebuilding Gaza. That is on top of the $7 billion already pledged by members. All of this as he opened the Board of Peace's inaugural meeting in Washington, D.C., and he called it one of the most important things he has done. At the same time, he called out major US allies who have not yet joined the Board of Peace, saying that some are playing a little cute. Let's take a listen to what the US president had to say.
I believe it's the most consequential board, certainly in terms of power and in terms of prestige. There's never been anything close because these are the greatest world leaders. Almost everybody's accepted, and the ones that haven't will be. And some are playing a little cute. It doesn't work. You can't play cute with me. But they're playing a little bit, but they're all joining. Everybody, most of them very immediately. A few that we really don't want because they're trouble.
You'll notice that he said that there are a few he didn't want because they're trouble, but that's after they said they didn't want to join, just in case you were wondering. Meanwhile, several members of the Board of Peace have pledged, as we said, that $7 billion towards a Gaza relief package. But it also is important to note that the United Nations estimates the cost of damage in Gaza to be around $70 billion. So just $7 billion is quite a fraction in terms of what is really needed. If we're looking at the attendance of several leaders, let's take a look at the actual pictures. It's not just this yet. They included the presidents of Argentina and Indonesia, who also signed a trade deal with the US while they were there. Viktor Orban, the Hungarian prime minister, was also there, as was the king of Bahrain. The many countries actually just sent lower level officials in their place. Now, a number of European allies, nearly all of whom declined membership, they did send observers to the session. And we cannot forget that Palestine was not invited to join the board created to build or rebuild its own territory. So let's get a clear picture on what the Board of Peace is planning and pledging to do. So let's start with the money. As we said, 7 billion pledged by the members and then another 10 billion pledge from the United States. That might actually set off alarm bells in terms of congressional approval, but we'll also see what happens with that. Now, in addition to that, there is the manpower. So there's a 20,000 troop international stabilization force also planned to be involved. And then there's the rebuilding of 100,000 homes in Rafah, as well as $5 billion dedicated to infrastructure. And then, provided that everything goes well, there's also going to be expansion of the rebuilding of homes from 100,000 to 400,000. All of this sounds fantastic on paper. Don't know when any of this is actually going to materialize. Now, while all of this was happening in DC, in the Gaza Strip, at least 2 Palestinians were wounded by Israeli fire. Israeli forces and settlers also carried out raids across various parts of the occupied West Bank, shooting at least 1 man, arresting Palestinians and storming homes. This is amid a widely condemned formal bid to effectively annex large areas of Palestinian territory. That is a story that we brought to you on the World Brief earlier this week. Well, let's move on. Because with all of this talk about US brokered peace comes accusations of hypocrisy. And that is as judges at the International Criminal Court, who have been sanctioned by the US, say that the reprisals haven't stopped their own work. Now, Canadian judge Kimberly Prost and Peru's Luz del Carmen Ibanez Carranza told UK press that being placed on a sanctions list alongside terrorists and organized criminals came as a shock. And it does continue to impact their daily lives. They have cancelled credit cards, for example, and they're also blocked from creating Google accounts. The measures stem from a Trump administration campaign launched last year through an executive order to punish, essentially, ICC officials over investigations and arrest warrants targeting Americans and allies, including Israel, despite neither the United States nor Israel being a party to the court's founding 1998 Rome Statute. It's the treaty that essentially started the ICC. Now, the judges said that the sanctions are designed to undermine the court's independence, but both of these judges say that they remain committed to their work investigating war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity, and that the sanctions, though difficult, haven't changed how they decide cases. We're wrapping things up on the World Brief this week with news that the son of former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe has been arrested on allegations of attempted murder. His name is Bellarmine Mugabe. He is 28 years old and he was taken into custody after a 23-year-old man believed to be an employee who worked as a gardener. Some reports say he worked as a guard. He was shot and injured at the Mugabe family home in Sandton, South Africa. Now, police are believed to have found bullet cartridges in the property in the Mugabe family home, but no gun. Bellarmine Mugabe is the youngest son of Robert and his second wife, Grace Mugabe. Robert himself died back in 2019. He did, in fact, lead Zimbabwe for 37 years before being forced out of power at the age of 93 back in 2017. Grace Mugabe has not returned to South Africa. It's been 8 years, actually, and that was after a warrant was issued for her arrest after she allegedly beat her son's girlfriend with an extension cord in a Johannesburg hotel. Let's take a look at our newspaper headlines from across the globe. As ever, we begin with the front page of This Day here in Nigeria. And This Day does report that the Senate has threatened to cut the proposed 58.47 trillion naira 2026 budget over unrealistic revenue projections, weak oil performance assumptions and poor capital budget implementation. The president is warning, essentially the federal government is warning that lawmakers may reduce the proposal unless the federal government revises its estimates and provides credible revenue guarantees. The Daily Independent this morning does report that the Rivers State House of Assembly has decided to withdraw its impeachment proceedings against Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu. That is following President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's intervention, with lawmakers saying that the move aims to restore peace and stability and effective governance in Rivers State. Let's take a look at the New Telegraph this morning. And the New Telegraph reports that the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration, NAFDAC, has essentially sealed 18 warehouses in Bida, Niger State. And that was after discovering expired food and beverage products worth over 100 million naira. Several suspects were arrested and investigations are ongoing. Also, if we're looking at the New Telegraph this morning, its picture headline shows Olayemi Cardoso. He is the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, alongside Wale Edun, who is the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy. They participated in the G24 2026 meeting in Egypt, where discussions focus on strengthening financial systems and advancing payment reforms led by the Central Bank of Nigeria. He gave a very insightful speech, he did. Now, if we move over to the Vanguard gives us a bit more information actually about what took place in Egypt, and it does report that Wale Edun has raised concerns over Nigeria's rising debt service burden, noting that debt servicing now consumes a significant share of revenue and poses a major challenge for developing economies. While Olayemi Cardoso, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, did call for faster and cheaper cross-border payment systems to support economic growth and financial inclusion amongst G24 countries. And before we leave the Vanguard this morning, just across the bottom here, we can see that Lagos State is strengthening its deterrence efforts, warning truck and cargo owners who allow their drivers to operate under the influence of hard substances will be prosecuted. That is as the Lagos State government has extended its free eye tests and corrective glasses to 1,000 NDLE officers. Now, let's take a look at The Guardian this morning. The Guardian reports that the Nigeria Labour Congress has rejected a proposed 6 trillion naira bailout demand by power generation companies, and it's describing it as an attempt to siphon public funds, while lawmakers also raise concerns that despite the billions being spent on the power sector reforms, electricity supply has not significantly improved. Let's take a look at the Daily Trust this morning. The Daily Trust this morning reports that suspected Lakurawa terrorists attacked 8 communities in Arewa local government area of Kebbi State. They killed at least 35 people during coordinated raids over there. And then we have the Daily Telegraph of the United Kingdom. As expected, British papers this morning are completely focused on Andrew's arrest. So we see that the Daily Telegraph describes the former Duke of York as looking like a man with the full weight of the past and the future on his shoulders. And then we have the Daily Mail, and its headline clearly says downfall. It's the one-word headline on the front page of the Daily Mail, which claims that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor looked haggard, shamed, and haunted as he left police custody on Thursday. Those are your newspaper headlines and your World Brief. Love to hear your thoughts.
So, I like to point out hypocrisy. Yes, they can say everything about Andrew Mountbatten, and I think they should still investigate more as regards, sexual offense with underage. But King Charles that came out to say that let the rule of law take its course. Mm-hmm. The same King Charles. Have you forgotten the 1993 recordings between him and Camilla then? They were both married to 2 different people, talking all randy talk that was recorded and picked up.
Is it illegal? Was it illegal?
What?
Would you say that was illegal? Is it on par with what Andrew has done?
No. They were both married to 2 different people.
Yes, but Andrew is not accused of cheating on his wife.
No. I'm trying to say based on the moral standing for even the king.
Understood.
You get
yes.
To even say let the law take its course. No, I'm not saying it's on the strength. It's
on par. It's not on par.
It's not on par.
But you're saying that he should get off his high horse because he
should get off his high horse. That's what I'm saying.
No problem.
With another man's wife, while he too was married, and these were the custodians of the Church of England. And they keep deceiving themselves. So please, we want that case to be investigated. As regards Donald Trump and his board of hypocrisy, he's just looking for retirement money. He says America will put 10 billion down. He's the life chairman. Who is going to appropriate the money? There's no system that's going to vet how the money is going to be spent.
That's what we're waiting for.
You can see the joke he has made America. Whoever is worth their salt in the world didn't come. They were sending representatives. His allies sent observers. That's to show what the joke he has become. He said he wants to build houses in Rafah. The same Rafah that you people destroyed, that 30 billion of American bomb was used for Gaza. I mean, what is wrong with this man? How low will this man bring America to?
That's the question.
The same you that you collected money from the Qatari government, you collected jets from them, beg your pardon. The jet, you are using taxpayers' money to retrofit the jet so that you use the jet when you leave the office. They should just come out to say that people like his in-law,
Jared Kushner,
they are just looking for a way to get business deals. Anyway, he's become richer. He was not even, you can even argue that was even truly a billionaire before he got into office. But today is officially a billionaire. This man will go down in record as a man that has stolen the American people dry, desecrated America, make America look like a joke. Anyway, some people will say he's the punishment for all the sins of the likes of Kissinger and co.
Thanks for replying.
On the UK situation with I'll just call him former Prince Andrew because his new name is a mouthful. Former Prince Andrew.
No, you can just go Randy Andy.
No. Please. Well, one of the things I would say is that I think it's the person I feel most, I don't want to use the word sorry, but in a very tight situation would be King Charles, because he has to have, the balancing act between family loyalty and duty to the crown. He declined, like you mentioned, at a fashion show when a Nigerian designer was actually showcasing. I believe her name is Tolu, especially since fashion is an item, but that's a digression. That he was, he wasn't aware that he was going to be arrested. I don't know what his awareness, if it would have had any impact in terms of some form of conversation, if he had been told or warned that his brother would be picked up on his birthday. Number two is that he has to, his mom people accused the Queen at the time of shielding Andrew a lot.
Yes.
He was said to have been her favorite.
Yes.
She shielded him a lot. But now that she's passed away, would her son, King Charles, follow in that line and still continue to shield his brother? It doesn't seem like that. No, I mean, he stripped him of his royal titles. He's been evicted from his royal homes. He cannot be removed from the line of succession except by an act, or he has to go through parliament. So that's still intact. But it's just the disgrace and the shame. Now, there's also the conversation around removing him far away so that he doesn't stain his own crown and the monarchy itself. Because you know that the dissent with the royal family over the years have grown. There are groups that have continued to advocate for the abolishing of the monarchy in the United Kingdom. And so they are walking on a tightrope. They've had to deal with a number of controversies over the years. They've been able to survive it, but with every hit has made it a bit weaker. And so let's see how the family would manage it at this time. But the truth at the end of the day is that justice must be served. A young lady's life is at stake, even though that's not the reason why he's being investigated.
No,
I think it's
not
important to highlight that.
Correct.
It's not for his sexual misconduct. Yeah, it lost her life, but it's not for his sexual misconduct. It's based on similar charges against Tom Mandelson, whereby during his official duty, he released some state secrets. So abuse of office is what is being investigated. Correct. And for white collar crimes, they won't keep him in custody. That's why he's been released. However, it doesn't mean the case is over. They will still continue to investigate. If anything else prompts them to see that he needs to be arrested, then they'll do that. But the crown is under scrutiny. The king must be, I don't know if he's sleeping well at night to see how he will handle this. And then on the United States of America, well, on the Board of Peace, more like, because it's not a US initiative, I think it's important to clarify that it's a Trump initiative. And the makeup of the leadership is one of the biggest challenges of the Board of Peace I see now, and how sustainable it would be, especially because, as has already been established, Trump has made himself life chairman, and he has the monopoly of appointing who will be his successor. I mean, it just shows you, and some people in Europe have described this as imperialist in terms of the style of leadership, and it demonstrates, like I've often said, that if given the opportunity, or where there's a lack of institutions or the respect for the rule of law, any president would want to be a lifetime president. Anyone would want to be has the potential to be a dictator, and this is what we see playing out. But to the extent the UN has, supported this move, but I don't know to what extent it will be sustainable. It just seems like it would last during his lifetime, and afterwards, it may not be in existence.
Okay, as I said earlier, the major message from the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is that nobody is above the law. The anti-monarchists operating under the banner of a group called the Republic may say that they are going to mobilize their lawyers to investigate everything possible. But I think, in terms of the fact that nobody has the divine right to behave anyhow, That in itself is a good message from England that we should underline. And it's after a pattern. This is not the first time that a member of the royalty will be called to account. Prince Charles himself, to cite a specific example, was interrogated after the death of Princess Diana. Prince Harry has been also called in also for interrogation once. Prince Philip for excessive driving. Princess Anne for excessive driving, and she got a warning. Edward VIII also at the time had a brush with the law. But a more dramatic case of nobody being above the law, whether you are royalty or plebeian, is the case of King Charles I, who in 1647 was arrested for turning against Parliament and being tyrannical. And he was committed to prison, and in 1649, he was beheaded. So these are examples in the past, so that nobody is above the law. That's the principle there. And the risk that former Prince Andrew now runs is that, in fact, he could be sent to jail because he's sabotaging the country by sharing sensitive information. It's a serious offense. That's that about that. As for Bellarmine Mugabe, Robert Mugabe imposed himself on the people of Zimbabwe for 37 years as a maximum ruler, sit-tight ruler, inflicting violence on the people. Grace Mugabe, the secretary that became wife after the death of Sally Afron, the first lady of Zimbabwe, also inflicted violence on the people. She was known as Gucci Grace for extravagant lifestyle. And then she was also known as Disgrace behind her back because she was also very violent, either beating people up in China or flogging people with electric cord, because some girls she alleged were living with her sons in South Africa. In fact, there's still an existing warrant out for Grace Mugabe in South Africa. She hasn't been there in 8 years. Correct. She's a fugitive in South Africa. And now the son is alleged to have shot somebody. Well, as they say, apples don't fall too far from the tree. What else can we say? The matter speaks for itself, but the law must take its course. As for Bond of Peace, well, some countries, major allies, boycotted. But the issue, of course, is that the future of Gaza is still not clear. And that was why I said yesterday's meeting was exploratory. Some people just went there to observe. $7 billion. What is 7 billion out of the UN estimate of over 70 billion? But FIFA is going to give 75 million. The UN, we are told, is also going to contribute 2 billion.
Infantino with his red hat.
Infantino that's giving the money.
2 billion from the UN for humanitarian assistance. But as they were talking, there was still violence in Gaza. Correct. And no resolution on demilitarization. Because Gazans say they will not demilitarize until Israel withdraws its troops. Israel says no. So it's still a developing story. Yes, Thank you very much, Adefemi.